You know what that meant. And Mary Magdalene in the questing heart. Oh my goodness, Mary, Mary. And Michelle and the dancing king. Miriam and the younger brothers. The patriarch woman of Tebez and the grasping general. Oh, everyone knows this about Joseph. Potiphar's wife and the respectful slave. You know that Joseph was a very handsome man. And Potiphar's wife plotted to discredit him because he was the head of his household while the landlord was away. Who died? Shipra and the boiling of the barrel. My Lord, these are some brazen women. Rachel, Leah, and the dubbing of the bridegroom. Well, you know that Rachel was the oldest back in those days. The older sister had to be married first before the younger sister. So when it was time to claim the bride from the bridegroom, they had Rachel there instead of Leah. Rahab and the scarlet cord, you know about her. She made sure that the spies that was down to save their life, because they came down the cord to let the people know what was going on. Rebecca and the camels of courtship. Rebecca and the golden opportunity. Rhoda and a knock at the door. Rest in the bones. Oh, we should lift that up a little bit, see what that's all about. Ruth and an unexpected gleaning. We know about Ruth and Naomi. Oh, Boaz saw her out in the field and said, my, who is that lovely woman there? And he said, leave some extra wheat and stuff down there because I want her to make sure she gets some extra gleaning. Salome and the sickle snare. The Samaritan woman and the meeting at the well. Well, this is really lifting up because you know Jesus was the first woman he told who he was the Samaritan woman, and he met her at the well in the middle of the day. You know that is very, very strange. Samson's wife and the quarrel of betrayal. Oh, Samson was so in love. And Sapphira in the better bargain. My Lord. Sarah and the bride night demon. Ooh, I don't know if we want to go at that night. It is a bridal night demon. Lord have mercy. We might want to lift that up a few moments. The Shumanite mother and the promise kept. Oh, Lord. The sardonic winner and the last meal cake. Wow. Susanna and the weighty word. Tabitha on the other side of the journey. Tomorrow and a long way around. You know, sometimes you can take the long way around to get to the same result. Tamar and the broken bread. The wise woman from Abel and the obvious solution. That sounds very interesting. And the woman and the shattered jar. And the woman and the stone unthrown. Wow, when you want to throw stones at people, you better be careful. But sometimes God will stop you. He will have you reconsider that. Let's look in the Bible and see which one of these let's start out with Eve in the first fruits. Now let's see what Eve is doing here. She's in on this page 207. And we're going to read about Eve and how she had to deal with the first fruits. Isn't it funny? We don't live on farms anymore, but you know the first fruits of any harvest we're supposed to give to God. And this is Eve in her rendition. Now he said she should have known, but Eve reflected years later as she tended her grandson Enoch's stepson. She should have realized it when she and Adam had not died the death, as the Lord God had warned them when they would. They had not garnered that promise. First fruit of their defeated, foolish disobedience. Thinking to be as gods, they had lost everything, but they had not died. So sometimes when you're looking for God to you say you're going to die, sometimes He's just dealing with your spirit. He's not dealing with your physical being. He's letting you die to some things that you used to know and do, and then renew you in things that you should be doing. So Eve is at this point, she's older now. She should have seen this particular horror coming through her thoughts. She had recognized the elements from the beginning. She should have done something to stop it before and had a chance to stop it. Well, while she was watching her grandson play, believe it or not, Eve has a grandson, my night. The day had been hot, and she probably wished she could have watched Cain, her firstborn son, but you know that didn't happen. She had named him Cain, this new little man, and she and Adam had gone from the Lord God, and they had rejoiced together in everything he learned. She was very pleased with Abel. We loved Abel. You know, you have some kids would be your favorite. Well, Cain got a little jealous of that, and so you know what happened there. But like anything else, the main thing that God teaches us in these books of stories about women is how they were able to overcome, and how you're able to deal with your grandson and your son, and how that relates into with God's Spirit. God has no stepchildren, as you know. So Eve is in the midst of saying that, you know, it's a beautiful thing to be a grandmother. It's a wonderful thing. You only need one. Well, I have 8, so I way past the bar on that. So the thing about this with Eve is that she finally realized that, you know what, grandchildren, just like God treats us, are very special. They're not. They are the legacy from your loins, from your child's loins to your loins, and you see this legacy. You want to cherish it, but sometimes you can be a little overprotective, and they don't get to learn what they should learn, because we're always grabbing them and saying, oh, don't do that. But see, sometimes kids have to do things on their own until they learn themselves. So the main thing in this story was that Eve realized that how she felt about Cain, how she felt about Abel, did progress on to her grandchild, and she had to really think about that. Just because you have grandchildren, they do not limit your child. That grandchild is their own personal person. So, and you as a grandmother has to really look at that. Remember, they are formed from the form from the form. So they're not going to be just like your child, your child itself. So you're going to see some very different nuances in that. And Eve had to learn that. She finally realized that Eve had conceived Seth when she was born. She had welcomed him as a child. The Lord God had given her to fill Abel's place, and felt the first faint thread of healing beginning. In other words, when Abel was killed, was killed by his brother. Eve conceived Seth, which is his brother, and so it begins to heal. We have to learn how to let God heal us in so many different ways. He always comes upon us and let us know how things should be and how things come about in the Bible. Most women in the Bible have not been lifted up, because it seems that for some religions, they seem to think it's quite minor. But actually, it's over 400 women in the Bible that have contributed to the forming of the Bible and really learning what do women do in the Bible. One of the things that I like about this particular book, it brings out some of the triumphs. Now, we know about Esther, so let's go in here and see Esther in the balance of power. Let's see how she worked that out. You know, Esther was under the disguise of being a Persian, when actually she was an Israelite. And she was so beautiful that she was chosen to be the queen after 3 years of ruling. So no one knew she was not Persian. So, and her king didn't know she was Persian. So she had to really put on an act, until one day a gentleman named Hamel wrote and had the king write a decree saying that all Israelites would die. You know, and back in those days, when a king did a decree, it had to be fulfilled. Even though it was rescinded, it's still someone had to die, because what the king said goes. So what happened with Esther was that she had to figure out a way to stop all of her people from dying, every one of them. So she figured that maybe, just maybe, she can get the king to listen to her. Now, she's a very bold woman, as some of us are in the holy bold. Some of us in this room and some of us outside the internet sphere. We are very bold when we think we're right. Now, Esther knew she had to show herself, because her uncle came and told her, you have to get to the king and you have to convince him to rescind that decree and write another, so we can save the Israelites, save all the Jewish people, because other than that, guess what? All of them, including you, will perish. So that doesn't set too well with some women. So what she had to do was entertain her husband for 3 days. And during those 3 days, what she had to do, balance of the power, she had to come to her husband in a very subservient mode and stretch her hand out and let the king touch the scepter of the king and says, I need to talk with you. This is what I want to have a court. Please come to my quarters. At that time, the king and queen were separate, and we were going to talk. So he went to the first day. It was a wonderful party, and he went, well, Esther, what is it that you need of me? I'll give you half my kingdom. She said, well, no, not just yet. I just want to give you a party. I just love you so much. But so he said, okay. He said, would you come the second day? And the second day she had a lavish layout, and, oh, king, I just love you so very, very much. You know, I just want you to ask you this one question, but I know you're busy, so I gave you this party, so I know you're resting. So the third day, she finally got up enough courage to say, here's, I want you to come to this party, and I want you to enjoy it. But what she had in mind, and most women do, is that she had to approach him when he was doing business. So what she did was, after all the partying was over, she went up to the king, and most of the time when you go up to the king and he didn't summons you, your head would be immediately cut off. So Esther took a chance on going up to the king, and what she did, she bowed her head down. It says here, she bowed her head down, and she held her head like this, she held her hand out like this, and she said, "Oh, king, I have a request of you." Well, the king is her husband, so he's like, and the guards came to take off her head, and he said, "No, this is my queen. Whatever she wants to have in my kingdom, I will give to her." She had her hand on that scepter.